Hi everyone, it's Amy here from the blog I Think Therefore I Teach. Welcome to your final criminology instalment. This one is for the topic of 3.2 found in Unit 4. Let's get cracking. Three point two then is describe the contribution of agencies to achieving social control. You're already aware of the different agencies, and this is just to describe, so it's not an evaluate or an assess question. You simply just need to be able to describe in some detail the different areas. Tactics and measures then used by agencies. You need to know all of these, so it's easier to line them up like this first so that you can organise your notes and understand where each of them fall. So within environmental, there are three areas. There is the design, including CPTED, you have gated lanes, and you have prison design. You then have behavioural, including Asborn token economy, you have institutional, and finally you have gaps in state provision. These are all tactics and measures used by agencies in order to help with social control. The first is environmental, and this is design. Some criminologists believe you can design and plan a town or city to discourage crime. Are there any town city features that you think would increase crime? What do you think would increase crime in an area? What do you think would decrease crime in certain areas to do with the design of the town and city? Oscar Newman contributed towards answering this. Newman believed that if an area was confused, unowned, uncared for, it is indefensible. That's a nice key word to use. Newman was an architect and conducted a study on a block of flats in New York. He found that more than 50% of crimes happened in the indefensible areas, e.g. the stairwells, the lifts, the corridors, the entrance to lobbies, areas where people, it looked uncared for, unowned, unlooked after, just confused. So, for example, an example you could link to this was how Damalola Taylor was stabbed in the stairwell of a block of flats. So what do you think might make a space look owned or defensible? And why might that deter crime? So just have a think about that for a second. Continuing on environmental then, defensible spaces have lower crime rates. Newman puts this down to territory. This is where the environment encourages a sense of ownership. So, for example, cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs are those circular areas where people live around in a circle. It harbours a sense of local community and responsibility for the space because each of them can look into each other's houses. You are very enclosed together. Natural surveillance, overlooking public areas, low-level windows, low bushes, houses that face each other, good lighting. People can observe who and what goes on. There's a lot of net twitchers. People love having a look out of their nets. Not that people have nets very much anymore. They're blinds, blind twitchers. They like to have a look outside, see what's going on. Where are they going? Who are they? Where's that car come from? People like in certain areas, certainly areas where you have the low windows, the low bushes, and you can look out. People like to people watch and know who's in their area. A safe image. Buildings are designed to foster a sense of safety and community, a safe location. Neighbourhoods are sited within areas seen as safe, so there's a moat of safety around it. C.R. Jeffrey also was a criminologist inspired by Newman's ideas. He believed the design of urban areas encouraged crime, and so it should be possible to alter this, that the actual design of them encourages crime, so change the design, change the crime rates. He developed the idea of crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED. And so all of this is very, very important. Now, you don't need to remember all four of Newman's, but certainly those are the key words that an examiner will be looking for. So you need to know territoriality, you need to know safe image, safe location, you need to know the names of these ideas. Crime prevention is obviously very important as well to remember that, and your names, Newman and Jeffrey. So what is CPTED? Dr. Alice Coleman analysed blocks of flats in 2 London boroughs. She concluded that the poor design of the flats promoted criminality. Her ideas have been very influential on modern town planning, and so my students watch a clip on YouTube. There's many clips on YouTube that look at the idea of CPTED, so just type that in and you'll see some plenty of videos that you can watch to help. The recommendations are: don't build any more high-rise blocks of flats. Give existing blocks their own private spaces, gardens to encourage residents to care for them. Remove overhead walkways to improve visibility and surveillance. And the results: removal of the overhead walkways at Leeson Green Estate in West London led to 50% reduction in crime. So it's the idea of when you have underpasses as well, so bridges you go under, the crime happens in those. If you have overpasses, it stops surveillance of crimes happening around these areas. And so she did find that in Lisson Green, so a specific area, it reduced by 50% did the crime. Police forces sometimes employ specialist architectural experts to help design buildings. And a new kite mark, secured by design logo, means a building has met certain crime prevention standards. Evidence suggests a 30% lower burglary rate in these houses. So this is an example of what would work in the design of them. You've got the low hedges, the low bushes, it's all gardened and cordoned off, it looks very well cared for, the grasses are cut, plenty of lighting, large windows, low set windows, anything else on there, large windows, porches, sidewalks, encourage interaction with neighbours, paving and architecture, public and private zones, good pedestrian scaled lighting, low landscaping and fences, so gives property lines without creating hiding spaces. And so that would be the before, that's the after. So in the before, you can't really even see there is a house in there. How would you know if someone's burglarising that house? How would you know that there's not a crime being committed in that house? How would you know there's not a dead body under them bushes, for example? So it's very overgrown. But then people would say that that's rural, that the house is rural, whereas the other side, the trees are controlled, the grass is cut, the hedges, the borders are made very, very clear. But then people would say that that then is, you know, stopping the natural rural look of areas. But if it helps crime, it might be worth it. Again, before and after. The before one doesn't look particularly well kept. The grasses aren't cut, the trees, the bushes aren't kept. It doesn't look particularly owned or looked after, whereas the second one, it looks owned and looked after. Also, the bushes mean that because you can't see out the windows, you can't see who is approaching your property, but people from the outside on the street also can't see who is maybe around that house that shouldn't be. Whereas the other house is very open, it's very clear who should and should not be around it. I then get my students to watch this clip, and then I get them to do a bit of fun. I get them to walk around our college and look at all the CPTED assessments, the things that we do at our college that ensure that we look well kept, that we looked lived in, and that there's somebody, you know, looking after our institution. So I get them to actually be an advisor for our college. Students find this quite fun, actually. So maybe have a go at think about doing it in your own institution as well. What can you see in your institution that implies that it's defensible, that it's looked after? Links between CPTED and the right realism. This again is what gets you the high marks, the links with the Unit 2 materials. Situational Crime Prevention, SCP. It looks at crimes committed and how situational changes can be done to prevent this happening. Both SCP and CPTED involve trying to make it clear for criminals, make it harder for criminals to commit crime. SCP can involve target hardening. This might involve things like putting locks on windows or fitting a car alarm, anti-vandal paint or fitting CCTV. So just basically making it harder to be a target is what that is about. Or it can involve designing out crime, sloping seats on a bus shelter, for example, to prevent vagrancy. Felson's routine activity theory. The theory suggests having a capable guardian to protect vulnerable targets for crime. CPTED makes neighbours capable guardians of each other in making surveillance easier. So often you have in certain areas protection watch, neighbourhood watch, where this was a big popular thing in kind of the 80s and 90s. I think it's still done a lot in America, but neighbourhood watch, you can be part of a neighbourhood watch where people go around and watch the neighbourhood, making sure that, you know, that things aren't happening that shouldn't be. Rational choice theory. CPTED views the criminal as someone who acts rationally. So there's a rationality behind them, hence the right realism. There's a right realism behind them. There's a right rationality behind them. So if you know that they're thinking rationally about what they're doing and the crimes that they're committing, if they weigh up the risks and believe there is a high chance of being seen challenged, then they will be more likely to avoid it. So again, if there's lots of trees and bushes, it's easier to hide. It looks very unkept. It might, obviously, if a property is very unkept as well, it might imply the person is older or disabled and can't look after the property as well. So it looks more of a target. So if you make your property look less of a target, you're less likely to be a target. And so it's the idea there for rational choices, because they're a burglar is thinking rationally about which property to target, make sure you don't look like a target. I then get my students to discuss these. Do you think CPTED is a good idea? Can you think of any problems and limitations? What types of crime do you think it's most effective in preventing? And what types of crime might it be less effective in preventing? The evaluation of it. Even in the middle of the day, cul-de-sacs are left without surveillance as many people are at work. Sometimes it's the housing policy that is problematic, not the environmental design. So, for example, councils putting problem families in the same area, so antisocial behaviour and neighbourhood nuisances. This can lead to a bad reputation for an area, so the police use more observational surveillance there, leading to more crime detection and subsequent deterioration of reputation. So, basically what this is arguing is a vicious cycle. So, certain areas like tall rise flats is where you might put problem families. So, problem families bring with them the problems. And so it's not the area, it's who's getting put in those areas, but then that area then starts to have more problems, so then they get a bad reputation, so then more surveillance is put in place which catches the problems, believing that those areas are the more problematic areas. It isn't necessarily, it's just the fact that the surveillance is picking it up. There's not surveillance in all areas, so you can't compare the surveillance from a nice area to a problem family area to say this is the big issue. There's no comparison, so it looks like these are problem areas because there's more surveillance there to pick it out. But it might be about the people that are there rather than the environment itself. Environmental still, this is gated lanes and alleys. An example of CPTED in action. In the 19th century, a lot of housing developments were back-to-back terraces, still extremely common today. You may be living in a back-to-back terrace yourself. Behind and between are rows or alleyways, extremely common. Pretty much most areas have alleyways between rows of houses. So why do you think these attract crime? Well, quite often, as you can see in the picture below, there's extremely tall walls at the back of each of the people's properties. Therefore, it's extremely hard to see what's going on in the alley behind your house. Often, again, they look very unkept. They're not very often swept. There's often quite a lot of rubbish. People might, I can't think what the word is, when people drop things there and take it to the tip, whatever it's called. Oh, it's going to bug me. No, I can't remember. But it's the idea there, if you can remember, put it in the comments. But people might leave sofas or fridge freezers out there for a long period of time because nobody will collect them, so they just leave them there. So it attracts crime because of how the area looks. Fly tipping. There you go. I knew I'd remember it. Simple idea to put a lockable gate on the alleyways between rows of houses, which only residents can use them. So basically, lock the alleyways up. If you have access to the alleyways because you have access to a property. You need a key or a key code to access. Usually made of iron or steel and are bespoke, so they're made very specifically for the alleyway that they're protecting. What benefits do you think that this would have? Well, surveillance, you would need access, territoriality it would support. However, it also prevents fly tipping, what I've just said, burglary, antisocial behaviour, drug taking. It gives children a safe space to play. So those are a few things it prevents, which goes into the strengths then of gated lanes. It is a physical barrier. It becomes difficult to climb over or crawl under, so it increases the effort required. So if, again, it's not easy to commit the crime, they'll just find an easier spot. So they'll find the alleyway that hasn't got a gate rather than try and get through or over or under the area that does have a gate. Residents are responsible for them and controlling access to them. This increases their guardianship and their natural territoriality. So it's the idea that they want to take ownership over that area because it's responsible to them, not because they have the key. Sidebottom, a criminologist, reviewed 43 studies of them, and so there is a good evidence that they do deter crime. It decreases broken windows, that argument there that, you know, when there's one broken window it leads to lots more because it gives the impression of that area, if there's a broken window or vandalism, it gives the impression again that it's not looked after. So it creates more orderly, clean spaces, again because of the gated area, so it's used less for crime, so it's maintained better. Reduces the attractiveness to offenders, takes the area out of awareness space of those liable to offend, and it limits the items it's possible to remove during a burglary. Yeah, even if you get through over the gate, how are you going to be able to pinch things to then get them back over the gate? Weaknesses, they are expensive. £800 to £4,000 per gate. Sidebottom claims this is worth it. However, where does that money come from? And there are so many alleyways, so therefore this is an expense. But it cannot prevent crime by criminals who live within the gated lane. So again, it doesn't stop the people that live in the area from committing the crime. They might then open the gate to their criminal friends as well. Requires community cooperation to keep them closed and locked. What happens if you just leave the gate open? What happens if you lose your key and someone gets access? It's difficult to get permission if the lane is a right of way. So if it's a throughway, so for traffic or for bin wagons, things like that. Or if it's not all, or if not all residents agree to having them fitted. So what happens if someone doesn't want them? Therefore, they won't use them properly, and therefore, if one person, one bad apple spoils the whole process. Can cause a hindrance for refuge collectors and emergency services. Often these houses are student accommodation, so there is a transient population, so there's people coming and going constantly, people changing constantly. So many people without an investment in the area have access, which reduces guardianship and territoriality. Again, they don't care. Their properties don't belong to them. The back streets don't belong to them. They don't care. They're not invested in the area. Environmental design continued then. We are now on prison design. This is so interesting, is prison design. The panopticon is a prison where the guard has a 360-degree vision. Cells are arranged in a circular formation with the guard watchtower in the middle. Panopticon means all-seeing. What advantages do you think this might have in terms of control over prisoners? Well, the idea is that they watch each other. It's a bit like Big Brother. Prisoners are actually watching each other. Prisoners are watching other prisoners. They are the officer, and then the officer in the middle can just rotate. So it feels like being watched all the time. It was an idea put forward by Jeremy Bentham, a philosopher close to my heart of my other subject, in the 18th century. An institutional building and system of control. Very, very clever. Wasn't very popular, surprisingly, though, and wasn't often used, but still very clever. The guard can see every inmate and cell, but the inmate cannot see into the tower, so the inmate never knows which way the guard is looking. So the guard could be looking at them, but it could be looking at the person behind. The guard might not even be in the tower. You don't know that, though. So they do not know. It's a bit like CCTV. You don't know whether it's on or off, so you don't really take the risk. So they do not know when they are being watched. It was not built during Bentham's lifetime, and I think there was one or two, but it wasn't a system that was ever really, it didn't take off. The first one was constructed in the 1920s, and so this is a picture of one that was in Cuba. Presidio Modelo. Isn't it fascinating? Even just the one that's, each of them are cells, the watchtower in the middle. Very interesting. Oh, I'd love to have a look around there. Prison designs further. Michael Foucault, further famous philosopher and writer, in his book Discipline and Punish in 1975. His book revived interest in the panopticon design. The prisoner is seen, but he does not see. He is an object of information, never a subject in communication. So therefore, he polices himself for fear of punishment. So again, the idea of coercion, fear. It's a deterrence against bad actions because you don't know whether you are being watched or not. Prison design today. Traditionally, prisons have been built to look imposing and like fortresses. Made of hard, durable materials. Why? Well, I guess you don't want a Shawshank Redemption, someone, clawing out of a wall. Sorry for the spoiler alert there. But these cause echoing noise, raising stress levels in staff and inmates. More recently, design of prisons has changed to encourage voluntary cooperative behaviour, positive relationships and rehabilitation. Focus on mental health and rehabilitation as well as relationships between staff and other inmates, e.g. making them more light, open spaces, access to the outdoors. And so I get students to research alternative prison designs. There are some very, very interesting prison designs, certainly in places like Norway. Their prisons are very different and their rehabilitation and crime recidivism rates are far better than us. But have a look at their prisons. Have a look, for example, at prisons in Texas. They're extreme at the prisons in Texas. They are your chain gangs, etc., all in orange. So have a look at the different facilities and compare. What's good or bad about them? What could we learn from them, etc. in our country? Fascinating. Next one then is behavioural tactics. These aren't as big as sections, aren't these ones? Behavioural tactics are measures to attain social control. What? So I was going to say watch. Watch this idea. This is a video about antisocial behaviour. Again, if you just type in antisocial behaviour, a lot of these videos, they're all very, very similar. There's not anything specific about this one. It's just people behaving badly. What do you think could be done about antisocial behaviour like this? I think it's somebody maybe attacking a police car, if I remember this link correctly. Sorry, that was a terrible word to use, correctly. Behavioural tactics are measured to attain social control. This involves using techniques and practices to modify or change criminal behaviour, not manipulating the environment, but using other tactics to persuade people to conform. Now, in ASBO, you won't remember ASBOs, you're too young for them, but they were antisocial behaviour orders. They were introduced in 1998 by Tony Blair, by the Blair Labour government, until 2015, part of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998. Now, in order to get your bonus marks in your exam, remember the acts that they're part of. Examiners are so impressed by that. So try to remember Crime and Disorder Act 1998. It was a civil, not a criminal order for fairly minor misdemeanours, so low-level problems. But breaching one is a criminal offence with up to 5 years in prison. So breaching your ASBO. Intended to prevent behaviour that breaches the freedoms and peace of another person. So anytime you had antisocial behaviour, but if you broke it, if you got one and then broke it, then it could go to a prison sentence. So this is very much like, again, the deterrence, a coercion. It's like a discharge. It's the idea that if you've got something hanging over you, you're more likely to behave because of the fear of going to prison if you were to do it again. That was the aim of them. Graffiti and criminal damage, public drunkenness and disorderly, loud music, noisy groups at night, verbal abuse. These were all things you could get an ASBO for. Did they work? Not really. People breached them repeatedly. It actually got to a thing where people would show up, oh, I have 5 ASBOs, oh, I have 6, what do you get your ASBOs for? It became a bit of a stamp of approval that people had. About 24,000 were given out and 58% were breached. 10,000 were breached repeatedly. So 24,000 were given out, 10,000 were breached repeatedly. So that meant only 14,000 weren't breaching them regularly. 10,000 were, and 58% of them were breached, so more than half of them were breached. Did all the people go to prison for 5 years? No. Once you realise you breached yours, you didn't go to prison. You breached yours, you didn't go to prison. I'll breach mine then. Once the fear of the punishment is removed, they don't work at all. If you threaten to say, I'll give you an ASBO, and if you breach it, you're in prison, you have to then follow it through. You can't threaten something and not follow it through, otherwise the system does not work. And of course the system did not work because the prisons were already full. How could you put someone in prison for 5 years for graffitiing or for playing loud music? You can't do that, so that's why they never followed it through. They thought the threat was enough and it wasn't. How might labelling theory explain why ASBO didn't work? Why would they breach so much? So basically, once you've got labelled an ASBO, so this idea of labelling from Unit 2, once you got labelled an ASBO, you thought, oh, I'm ASBO now, so I might as well do more. So it actually made people behave worse than better. Once you became an ASBO, it was like, all right, well, I might as well just vandalise, might as well play my music loud because I've already got an ASBO, so what's another one to me? They became a badge of honour and were abandoned in 2014. Replace with injunctions and CBOs. Injunctions mean are given for low-level nuisance. Breach of them can result in 2 years imprisonment for adults and 3 months detention for under 18s. Have I ever heard of these injunctions ever being used? Not really. Criminal behaviour orders, CBOs. For more serious antisocial behaviour, breach can lead to 5 years in prison and 2 years in a detention. Again, am I convinced that these actually are followed through? No. CBOs are orders where the behaviour has brought the individual before the court and they have been convicted of serious and persistent antisocial behaviour. CBOs differ from ASBOs mainly because they include positive requirements, sometimes such as attending drug treatment programmes. So rather than just labelling someone in a negative way, CBOs try and help them. I then get my students to research token economy again and the operant conditioning ideas. This is all from the first year. How would token economy be used? How can token economy be used in society? How can it be used in prison? What are the benefits of token economy? So token economy is a strategy used by operant conditioning. And so how effective do you think it is and what are the limitations? So I get my students to research and think about that one. Institutional tactics, the third area. Different organisations or institutions in society have their own tactics for reducing deviant or undesirable behaviour, so using token economy systems. Sanctions are consequences for behaviour imposed by an authority, can be positive or negative, are based on operant conditioning, rewarding desirable behaviour and punishing undesirable. And so can you think of positive and negative sanctions that are used in your own family, in your school, your workplace, the army? What about in prison? The prison service has its own set of rules that apply to all prisons. The prison governor can add their own rules on top of these. So they cover offending, threatening or hurting someone, preventing staff from doing their job, escaping from prison, using drugs or alcohol, damaging premises and not doing as the staff tell you. So what happens then if you break prison? You can't exactly be taken to prison. You get a warning or a caution. You get a loss of IEPs for up to 42 days. These are your perks. So that would be punishment because something nice is taken away from you. So for up to 42 days, that's quite a long time without TV, for example. Loss of earnings for up to 84 days. Cellular confinement, so being put on your own. Additional days being added to your sentence. They probably aren't going to do that though because they want people out of prison rather than staying in prison longer. It depends how bad they behave in prison though. Being moved to a higher security prison. Sometimes authorities can apply sanctions in a staged way. This could be inside or outside an institution. A first offence or misdemeanour might receive a more lenient sanction. So, for example, police might issue a caution or warning first, but if someone reoffends, someone may be charged. So this is the idea again of how they could use it in society, not necessarily when you're actually in prison. So maybe certain things like probation as well. Repeat offending leads to a stronger punishment, so it's phased, such as a suspended sentence. Oops, just go back. So staged and phased are important words there, hence why they're in orange. Number 4, the gaps in state provision leading to less social control. The resources, funding for social control agencies comes mainly from taxes, but demands from other sectors as well, education, NHS, welfare. Budget cuts have also had a huge impact on the police. We already know from other areas that police budget has been cut by 19%. That's a loss of 20,000 police officers. That means there's less people policing the streets. CPS budget was cut by a quarter. They lost a third of their staff. What it also means is when there's less people there, they have more responsibilities, more pressure on them, more stress, more likely to be going off sick or leaving the job as well. And mistakes happen. Prison budget fell by 16% and staff levels by 15%. Prison budgets fell by 6%. That is worrying. And the staff levels dropped by 15%. Because why would people, if you have a shift and you have certain number of inmates to look after or support, and you therefore get a larger area with less staff helping you, you're putting yourself at a massive risk in that you have more prisoners you need to keep an eye on, and therefore if you're more at threat or at risk of actually, you know, mistakes being made that could potentially affect your life, why would you stay in that area? So people are leaving the jobs as well, and the people leaving the jobs, it leads to the pressure on the people that are still there. New technology has also added an extra burden, such as mobile phone records or computer data, so having to process this in order to work out guilty, not guilty, etc. is a huge extra burden. In 2018, Alison Saunders was the head of the CPS, said it took 600 police hours to go through the digital material of one rape case linked to Tinder. Yes, you have all the evidence. Yes, you have a paper trail, which is excellent, because once you find the evidence, you therefore can have an easy conviction. Finding that evidence, though, 600 hours spent going through online materials. That's a lot of police time and hours. Unreported crimes. Crimes can only be investigated, prosecuted and convicted if reported, so 40% of crimes go unreported. We also know about the dark figure of crime as well. Only 1 in 4 rape cases are reported, or estimated 2 million domestic abuse cases, but only 600,000 recorded in 2018. So people aren't reporting them. And again, this is the vicious cycle, is people aren't reporting them because they believe they won't be taken seriously, because sometimes they're not taken seriously, so then people don't want to report them. Existing laws, new types of crime emerge, but no laws are in place to prosecute. For example, there are limited laws surrounding publishing scenes of rape, murder, terrorism or hate crimes via social media. Yet if this was shown in a traditional outlet like a book or a film, the person, the producer, the director, the company would be prosecuted. There's very limited, and again, it's very hard to monitor everything that happens online. For example, the right-wing terrorist who massacred 51 Muslims in mosques in Christchurch was able to live stream his actions. Absolutely horrific, and there was no way of stopping it because technology has taken on this whole different power. Both Germany 2017 and Australia in 2019 have passed laws to impose fines if social media outlets do not remove hate speech, fake news and illegal material. It's up to the people that own the sites. It is up to Facebook to monitor and Twitter to monitor. We know Twitter is having many problems at the moment. People can really post anything they want on Twitter and it's not monitored. Instagram, TikTok, all of these social media outlets need to be monitored, and if there is things on there about hate speech or fake news, then it has to be taken down, and it's the people, they'll be fined, is the companies, not the people doing it. The companies will be fined, and so it's their job to actually make sure that they're being monitored properly. If they can't monitor them properly, then they need to look into their safeguarding. Right, folks, hopefully you found that useful. I found this topic very, very interesting. I think it's a really interesting one. And so hopefully this video has helped. If you do have any questions or problems, just post them below and I'll try and respond. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss out on any future videos. And otherwise, bye for now, everyone. Thanks very much.